Ever pondered why the truth can be a dangerous thing? Why was Galileo, one of the greatest minds in history, put on trial for advocating a scientific fact? Immerse yourself in the world of the 17th century, a time when the church held immense power and sway over society. This was an era when a man named Galileo Galilei, an Italian polymath, dared to challenge the accepted truths. Galileo was not just any man. He was a master of many trades, an astronomer, physicist, and engineer, often dubbed as the father of observational astronomy, the father of modern physics, and sometimes even the father of science. Despite his groundbreaking contributions, Galileo found himself in the crosshairs of the church. His audacious claim that the Earth revolved around the sun rather than the other way round stirred a hornet's nest. This was a direct challenge to the church's authority and the prevalent beliefs of the time. So what led to this intellectual giant's fall from grace? Let's delve deeper into the story. Imagine a world where the sun revolves around the Earth. That was the belief until Galileo came along with his radical idea. Let's dive into the heart of this radical idea, the theory of heliocentrism. The seeds of this theory were sown by Nicholas Copernicus, a Polish astronomer, who proposed that the sun was stationary and that the Earth, along with other planets, revolved around it. This upended the long-held belief that Earth was the center of the universe, a belief that was deeply entrenched in the doctrines of the Church. Enter Galileo Galilei, an Italian scientist, who was not only intrigued by this Copernican view of the cosmos, but also became its most ardent supporter. Armed with his newly invented telescope, Galileo observed the heavens and found evidence that supported Copernicus's heliocentric theory. He saw the moons of Jupiter orbiting the giant planet, much like our own moon orbits the Earth. He observed Venus going through phases just like our moon, which could only be explained if Venus was orbiting the sun, not the Earth. But endorsing the Copernican theory was not without its perils. It directly contradicted the Church's geocentric view, which saw the Earth as the immovable center of the universe, with all heavenly bodies, including the sun, revolving around it. The heliocentric theory was nothing short of heresy in the eyes of the Church, a challenge to its authority and a threat to the established order. Galileo's endorsement of heliocentrism, hence, was not merely a scientific stance. It was a revolutionary act, a defiance of centuries-old beliefs, a bold assertion that sought to redefine our understanding of the universe and our place in it. But every revolution has its price, and Galileo was about to pay his. But this was just the beginning of Galileo's troubles with the Church. How do you think the Church reacted to Galileo's revolutionary idea? Spoiler alert, it wasn't pretty. In the early 17th century, the Church's authority was absolute, and it had a firm grip on the direction of scientific thought. The Catholic Church's reaction to Galileo's radical idea, to say the least, was hostile. The Church defended the geocentric model of the universe with Earth at the center, as it was in line with their interpretation of the Bible. Galileo's heliocentric theory, placing the sun at the center with the Earth revolving around it, was seen as heretical. It challenged the established order and threatened the Church's control over knowledge and truth. The Church was not ready to have its authority questioned, let alone by a scientist. And so, the Church chose to fight back. Galileo was summoned by the Inquisition, a church institution that dealt with heresy. His crime? Advocating the heliocentric theory and refusing to recant his beliefs. The stage was set for one of the most notorious trials in the history of science. The Church's refusal to accept Galileo's theory was not just about the science, it was also about power and control. The Church saw Galileo's ideas as a direct threat to their authority. If people began to question the Church's teachings on the structure of the universe, what else might they start to question? This clash between science and religion was a defining moment in the history of both fields. It raised fundamental questions about the nature of truth and the authority to interpret it. It was a battle of ideas, with the Church on one side defending its traditional interpretations, and Galileo on the other, advocating for scientific inquiry and evidence-based reasoning. The Church's reaction to Galileo's theory was more than just a disagreement over scientific theories. It was a struggle for power, a battle for the control of knowledge, and a confrontation between old and new ways of thinking. But the trial was more than just a disagreement over scientific theories. It was about power and control. The trial of Galileo, a momentous event that shook the foundations of the Church and the scientific community. The year was 1633. Accused of heresy for advocating the theory of heliocentrism, Galileo Galilei, the eminent scientist of the age, found himself in the hallowed halls of the Roman Inquisition. The charges were grave. Galileo was accused of holding, teaching, and spreading a doctrine that contradicted the Holy Scriptures, the belief that the Earth moves around the Sun. This was a direct challenge to the Church's geocentric model, which held that the Earth was the immovable center of the universe. Galileo's defense was as audacious as his ideas. He argued that the Copernican model did not contradict the Scriptures if they were interpreted correctly. He maintained that the Bible taught how to go to heaven, not how the heavens go. Nevertheless, the Church, being the ultimate authority, saw his defense as an affront to its power. The trial was a spectacle, a clash between unwavering faith and unyielding reason. The Church, being the judge, jury, and executioner, had the upper hand. The verdict, though expected, was a blow to the scientific community. Galileo was found vehemently suspect of heresy, forced to recant his beliefs, and sentenced to house arrest for the rest of his life. His writings on heliocentrism were banned, and the man who dared challenge the Church's worldview was silenced. The trial was more than just a personal tragedy for Galileo. It was a momentous event that marked the tension between faith and reason, between tradition and innovation, between the Church and science. The verdict may have been a victory for the Church, but it was a temporary one. Galileo's ideas could not be contained. They spread across Europe, igniting the flames of the scientific revolution. The trial had a profound impact not just on Galileo, but on the course of science. Despite the Church's efforts, the Earth continued to revolve around the Sun, just as Galileo had claimed. What happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object? In Galileo's case, it led to a life of house arrest. Under the watchful eyes of the Church, Galileo Galilei, the man who dared to suggest the Earth revolved around the Sun, was confined to his villa in Arcetri near Florence. But this was not just a physical confinement. It was an intellectual one, a symbolic gag that sought to suppress his revolutionary ideas. Yet this was Galileo, a man for whom the pursuit of knowledge was as vital as air. He was not one to be easily silenced. Under house arrest, his spirit remained unbroken, his mind unchained. Here, he would spend the last 9 years of his life, continuing his studies, his observations, his calculations. His home became his observatory, his prison a sanctuary of scientific exploration. In 1638, he published his last work, Two New Sciences. This book, written under the shadow of the Church's disapproval, was a testament to his indomitable spirit. It laid the foundation for the study of kinematics and strength of materials, and is considered a landmark in the history of physics. Imagine, if you will, Galileo, old and physically frail, yet mentally robust, his fingers tracing patterns in the sky, his eyes reflecting the stars he could no longer see, his mind always questioning, always seeking, always learning. The aftershocks of Galileo's trial resonated within the scientific community for centuries to follow. It was a chilling reminder of the clash between free thought and rigid dogma, between progress and tradition. But it also sparked a flame, a burning desire for truth that would not be extinguished, inspiring generations of thinkers, innovators, and rebels. Even under house arrest, Galileo continued his scientific pursuits, proving that no force could suppress the quest for knowledge. The legacy of Galileo is not just about the man who looked up at the stars. It's a testament to the enduring spirit of curiosity that fuels scientific discovery, a spirit that refuses to be confined, silenced, or suppressed. Galileo's story doesn't end with his trial. His legacy continues to influence us today. This man, who dared to challenge the status quo, left an indelible mark on the world of science. His unwavering belief in heliocentrism, despite the odds, set the stage for the scientific revolution. It was a revolution that transformed our understanding of the universe and our place within it. Centuries later, the Church would acknowledge their error. In 1992, Pope John Paul II admitted that the Church had been wrong to condemn Galileo. A belated vindication perhaps, but a significant one nonetheless. Today we stand on the shoulders of giants like Galileo. His courage to question, to seek the truth, and to persist against all odds continues to inspire scientists and thinkers across the globe. Galileo's trial reminds us that sometimes the pursuit of truth can be a risky business, but it's a risk worth taking, don't you think?